Okay, so Mitsurugi has been released now, and one of the ways that Mitsurugi is going to be played is with Ryzeal. Mitsurugi Ryzeal was a very popular deck in the TCG, so I have no doubt that it will see play in Master Duel as well. And what I've been doing in preparation for Mitsurugi is labbing out some combos and deck lists for Mitsurugi Ryzeal. So I wanted to just make a video going over some of the combos that I come up with and share them with you guys. So to start with, here is the deck list that I have come up with. I have not played a single game of this on Master Duel, so take it with a huge pinch of salt, like a bucket of salt. It's not going to be optimal at all. I have not tested it. I just theorized based on the engine requirements that are needed for the combos, and then some like ideas on what hand traps I think are very good against mirror matches and stuff. Duel, for example, is looking like it's a really good card against Mitsurugi, and things like Impalm and Vela, low impact cards, don't do much against Ryzeal, they never did, and I don't think they do much against Mitsurugi either. So that's why I think deck lists might be playing more Charmies, just because they are high impact, right? And then one Nibiru, just because it's theoretically searchable, with Gallant Granite, so... Yeah, feel free to ask any questions about the deck list, but don't expect me to have expert opinion here, this is just my guess. The main point of this video is I wanted to go over the combos, so... I made a little spreadsheet, link is in the description, completely free as always. So let's jump over to it. So this is the sheet, Mitsurugi Ryzeal combos. And what I've done here is I've made combos for Eclipse Twins when it releases, as well as combos without Eclipse Twins. The reason I did this is because Master Duel doesn't let you know exactly what's coming in the pack, so I sort of had to speculate whether this was gonna be released or not, and I couldn't really, tell either way, so I just kind of did both. I preemptively made combos like this, for no Eclipse Twins, and also for combos with Eclipse Twins. It kind of goes without saying that the combos with Eclipse Twins are a little bit better, but these ones here, the ones we're going to look at in this video, are perfectly fine. They're still very strong, so... let's just get right into the most obvious one, which is all of your one-card starters. So if we start with Ice one-card combo, which is the strongest Ryzeal one-card starter, you can see that we end on a really formidable end board here, which is a 3-material Detonator, Cross, Photon Lord, which is a rank 8 monster negate, Prayers, which is one of the new Mitsurugi cards, and Murakumo in Graveyard, which is a target for the Prayers. And we also hand loop 2 with Ouroboros, so, and we draw a card of course with Cross. So let's have a look at how we do this combo. So we start with just Ice. We don't need any additional discards in hand or anything like that. It's not one of those combos that need like a blank. It's not a deck like Branded where you need to discard for just about every other effect. This is a true one-card combo. So it's going to start like this. We're going to normal summon Ice, we're going to summon Ext. Now right away this is already a bit unintuitive because up until Mitsurugi's release, the way Ryzeal has normally been played is not to summon Ext with Ice, but usually to summon Sword. The reason you summon Sword is because Sword searches Ice and then Ice can just summon itself from the hand. That's not ideal in the Mitsurugi version, and you'll see why later on in this combo. But basically it's because Ext special summon effect locks you out of anything other than rank 4s. So we don't want to lock ourselves early, and Ice does not lock you at all, right? And the search effect of Ext does not lock you, it's only the special summon condition. So in pure Ryzeal before, this was completely fine to lock yourself early, didn't really matter because you were only summoning rank 4s anyway. But in Mitsurugi, you actually do have some other options, so that's why we're going to summon Ext. And Ext, of course, searches for Sword here. Next, you're going to overlay into King of the Pharalymphs. This card is banned in the TCG, so you can't do this anymore. But in Master Duel, this card is completely legal, and it is an SR, so... This card is good because it adds any reptile from the deck to the hand, which all of your Mitsurugi cards are reptiles, most notably Habakiri, so there's no level restriction on this. This card is just, it's not even once per turn, like you can make a second one of this if if your deck can fit 2 of them. But searching for Mitsurugi Habakiri here is extremely good. So next we're going to activate the Habakiri, which in the hand can activate its effect to special summon Saji from the deck. It can special summon any Mitsurugi monster, but the best one is going to be Saji, because Saji's effect is to search for Mitsurugi Ritual. We have to tribute a monster, that's part of Habakiri's effect, and we're going to want to tribute the King of the Feral Imps, because Saji is a level 4, so the body on the board is more valuable, because we're of course playing Ryzeal, so the level 4 body more important than the rank 4. Next we go Ritual, and Ritual we're going to use the effect, this second effect. We're going to Ritual summon a reptile monster from our hand by attributing monsters from the deck. So it's very important that you use the right effect of Ritual, and in different situations in practice it's going to be very different which effect you want to use, because you'll notice that this card does not say, like on the first effect, it says Ritual summon from your deck. It does not allow you to also summon it from the hand if you happen to draw it, right? You have to summon it from the deck. So if we do draw like the Murakumo, which is the other ritual target, which we're going to summon soon, we're going to have to play a little differently, but for now, just in theory, assuming that we don't draw one of the many bricks, this is what we're going to do. We're going to summon the Habakiri from the hand, and we're going to use Mitsurugi no Kusanagi and Night Sword Serpent from the deck. I'm sorry, by the way, that my screen keeps messing up. I don't really know why it's doing that. I think it might be like a driver issue, but for some reason, like, things keep disappearing temporarily. I'm sorry if that makes it more confusing. But anyway, that summons the Habakiri from our hand. And then what's going to happen here is we're going to get to trigger Kusanagi, which, if it's tributed, you get to target a Mitsurugi card in your graveyard or banishment and add it to your hand. And then also you get the Night Sword Serpent, which when sent to the graveyard by a card effect, special summons itself. So we're going to go Chainlink 1, Kusanagi, that's going to target the ritual, and Chainlink 2 is going to be the Night Sword Serpent. The reason why you want to do the Night Sword Serpent as Chainlink 2 here is just because it plays slightly better into Ghost Bell, which is not actually a bad card in the upcoming format, because it's pretty good against a lot of things in Mitsurugi. So next we're going to overlay these 2 level 4 monsters, and we're going to summon Duo Drive. Duo Drive is, of course, generic, so we can access Ryzeal through the Mitsurugi cards. And what we're going to do is put it in the extra monster zone. This is very important to put it in the extra monster zone, because we're going to run out of space in the main monster zone. So we really want this to be up here. So then we're going to activate the effect. And this is the first effect to attach a Ryzeal from the graveyard. It doesn't matter whether you attach X or Ice here, but you just want to make sure that you attach so that you get 3 materials. That's something that is very important for Ryzeal, just so that Cross has a good negate available. So then you're going to use the effect to search, and we're going to detach. I like to detach the Saji and the Ryzeal here just because theoretically the Night Sword Serpent underneath a Ryzeal here, either Detonator or Duo Drive, if you detach this for effect, then it will trigger. Right? This card is sent to the graveyard by card effect. It's kind of like how detaching Sharon with Redoer would always trigger the Sharon, because it counts as a card effect, it doesn't detach as cost. Duo Drive, on like a follow-up turn, detaches for effect, right? So just theoretically, this is like the only card that could be valuable as a material, so I like to leave this one as the material. And we're going to search for Node, as well as Plugin. So Plugin is a card that you don't need to play. There are builds that don't need to play this card. Pure Ryzeal likes to play it now. The card is basically a replacement for Eclipse Twins in the main deck instead of the extra deck. So until we get Eclipse Twins, like, Plugin is a more reasonable card. But now that Mitsurugi is released, even though there is no Eclipse Twins yet in Master Duel, Plugin isn't really necessary because you don't need this card to have like a fully functioning deck. So you can do combos that cut this card because it is not really a good draw, right? It's kind of a brick, so... but this combo that I'm showing you now includes Plugin. So we're going to search for Node, and plugin. It's very important that we search for these two specifically because there is no other way to search for these cards. Plugin, the only way to search it is with Duo Drive, and no other card is going to be able to search for node because remember that we've already used X effect to search. And X is the only one that can search for node. So we're going to make sure that we get these two now. Next, we're going to activate the Mitsurugi ritual. We're going to tribute the Habakiri, and that summons Murakumo from the deck. Again, like I said, if this card is in your hand, you're not going to be able to summon it here. This card forces you to summon from the deck, so you're going to have to go for a different line if you draw these cards, but in this combo, this is what you would do. Now, when you tribute a Mitsurugi boss monster, one of the rituals, they all just revive themselves. So this is going to summon itself straight back out. Right, if this card is tributed, you can add a Mitsurugi from deck to the hand and then splash or summon it. So it's going to search, and we're going to search for Prez. Prez here is really good. Prez is basically your end board piece, but this Prez you're actually going to use. You're going to use the effect, you can tribute the Murakumo, which has not yet revived itself. You're going to search for Habakiri here. This card is irrelevant, you don't use this in the combo. So theoretically this could be anything else, but in the Ryzeal version of the deck, especially if you're also playing like plugin, you're probably not playing any other Mitsurugi cards, at least any other Mitsurugi monsters. So grabbing a second Habakiri here is probably what you're going to do. But theoretically you could grab like, I don't know, Futsu if you're playing it, or you know, whatever else. But the main reason to do this is because additionally, since we tributed a reptile at activation, we get to special summon a Mitsurugi from the graveyard, and that's going to be a level 4 body because that's good with our Ryzeal cards. And then because we tributed Murakumo, it will revive itself. And also searches for a second Prez. Prez is once per turn, but this card is a quick play, so this is basically an end board piece now. We get to revive something on the opponent's turn using the Prez. And that will be a disruption because whenever Murakumo is special summoned, you get to Raigeki your opponent. So this is a pretty good disruption already established. So right here, if your opponent decided they wanted to drop Nibiru or something, or start disrupting your combos for some reason later on, no matter what happens, you know, maybe they drop 10 million Bestials or something, whatever happens, you have a Prez set up, which is already technically a disruption. But from here, what you're going to do is overlay your two level 8 rituals into Galaxy Eyes Photon Lord. This card is a monster negate. Detach material, negate that effect. So this card now insulates you from hand traps, most importantly Nibiru. Realistically, your opponent would have Nibiru'd you way earlier, but you would have been fine through Nibiru, and there are some notes in the spreadsheet here about Nibiru, especially early on up on this side with the Eclipse Twins side of things. I do a lot of detail about what happens with Nibiru. But basically your opponent would Nibiru you earlier, most likely, probably to stop the Duo Drive effect. But no matter what happens, remember you search for this sword really early on before 5 summons, which means no matter what happens, you're always going to be able to keep extending with the sword. So from here, what we're going to do is special summon the sword. Now that we've summoned our rank 8, we don't mind locking ourselves into rank 4s. So that's why we're going to summon the sword now, not earlier. And we're going to trigger the sword, and that searches for Star. Star is the best one to get here. It's the only one that makes sense because we haven't yet gotten to Ryzeal Cross. So we really want to use Star, which is the other way to access it. We can't use Star to access plugin because we're going to want to use plugin on this turn, and it's a quick play spell. And unfortunately Star sets rather than searching. So we can't do this the other way around. We can't get Cross earlier with Duo Drive and then get plugin with Star because we can't flip up the plugin this turn. So it has to be this way around. This is one of the reasons why Photon Lord is really good here, because it is extra protection against late Nibirus. So we're going to summon the Star, and most importantly we're going to detach from the Galaxy Eyes Photon Lord, and it specifically has to be the Murakumo. Like I said, the Murakumo is a disruption on the opponent's turn. The Prez wants to revive it, so it has to be in the graveyard. If you leave it under the Photon Lord, then you're just unnecessarily restricting yourself to having to use the Photon Lord effect negate first as a disruption before flipping the press, and there's just no reason to put yourself in that forced sequence of events when you could have it any way you like instead. So we're going to trigger the star, that's going to set the cross, and then we're going to activate the cross, and we're going to overlay all 3 level 4s into Ouroboros. This is generic level 4, and once per turn, this is the only effect that matters: send a random card from your opponent's hand to the graveyard. So we're going to detach, doesn't matter what we detach here. Actually it kind of does matter what we're going to detach, just slightly but not really. So we're going to loop 1 card from the opponent's hand, so they're now a card down. Then we're going to summon the node, and we're going to use the node to send away the Ouroboros, and we're going to target the sword. The reason you want to target the sword with node is just a small thing. This is something Ryzeal players kind of learn once and then never forget. It's just the only Ryzeal that can't be bestialed, so that one's the target that you always want to go for. And then that's of course going to make the detonator. Detonator on summon gets to attach a card from the graveyard. There is no aggregator, there's no X target because we didn't summon X using this mechanic, we only summoned it from the deck. So for this reason, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you have, you don't have any, doesn't matter what you attach, sorry. It doesn't matter because you don't have any impactful cards. I'm just going to attach the Feral Imps, and then we're going to use the plugin to revive the Ouroboros. Remember, this card can target any XC monster. And then we're going to attach an Ice Ryzeal from the deck. Then, because Ouroboros is not a hard once per turn, we're going to use its effect again to send a random card from the opponent's hand to the graveyard, and that's going to be our second hand loop. So we have now hand loop 2. We're then going to use Cross to put back 2 Ryzeals and draw a random card. This volcanic rat here is, as always, just a blank, just a random draw. Then you're going to set the Mitsurugi prayers and pass. So this end board has a monster negate with Photon Lord, a 3 material detonator, a Ryzeal cross with a material on duo drive so you don't have to waste a material on detonator, and you have prayers, which on the opponent's turn at any time is going to want to activate this effect here to special summon a Mitsurugi from the hand or graveyard. And of course the one you're going to summon is the Murakumo, and then on summon, this is Raigeki. Once it's on the board, Murakumo is even then a second disruption. When your opponent uses a card or effect, you can just make them discard a card. This is more impactful than it sounds, especially when you consider perhaps the most important part of this whole combo is that your opponent is down 2 cards. So they're literally just hand loop for 2, if they're starting their turn. They're gonna have 4 cards. So yeah, this end board, I think it's fair to say it's pretty much an FTK. You're gonna win most of these games. I guess theoretically it's not impossible to lose. You don't actually have an Omni negate. You could get hit with something like Evenly Matched, for example. But for the most part, you're gonna win with this board. So yeah, let's look at the next combo. So the next combo that I have here is an Ice 1-card combo again, but this time it's without playing plugin. So let's see what happens if you don't play plugin. What is the best combo you can go for? So I'm going to go through it a lot quicker this time because we've already explained what all of the cards do. But we're going to start with Ice as usual. Again, sorry for the cards disappearing and reappearing. I really don't know what's going on with my PC here. It happens on every single application. So I feel like it is like a driver issue. But anyway, we're going to summon X from the deck, just like before. The reason we're summoning X is exactly the same as before. We don't want to lock ourselves too early. Then we're going to go Feral Imps. Feral Imps is going to search for Habakiri. Then we're going to use the Habakiri, summon out Sagi from the deck, tribute the Feral Imps, adding the ritual. So far this is all exactly the same, so let's speed through it a little bit. We're going to send the same 2 cards, chain blocking the Night Sword Serpent, or chain blocking the Kusanagi, sorry, with the Night Sword Serpent. Plays a little bit better into Bell. Then we're going to overlay into Duo Drive. Again, remember to put it in the extra monster zone. And then this time I actually don't detach the X, I detach the Nightsword Serpent, but I do like leaving the Nightsword Serpent as material, just in case, you know, like I said before. And then we're going to add the node, and this time we're going to add the cross. So we're adding the cross because we don't need to add plugin, because we're not playing it. This is going to be a more conservative combo, but we're not going to try and hand loop twice. So because of that, we might as well search for the cross now. So we're going to activate the cross, and now we are protected from hand trap. If your opponent was saving one for some reason for a long time, they can no longer use it. And if it was Nibiru, of course, then they are forced to use it now as a last chance. Nibiru, by the way, on a Mitsurugi monster, not that good because it tributes. So this will trigger the if this card is tributed effect. So it will just revive itself and search. And that effect is one of the reasons why we want to do it right now, by the way. Want to go for the duo drive right now, rather than going for the Mitsurugi ritual again into the Mirakumo. So now we're going to go for the ritual for Mirakumo now, after we're protected from Nibiru. We're going to revive the Habakiri, search for the Prez. We use the Prez, tribute the Mirakumo, add the useless extra Habakiri, and then revive the level 4 body. Then we get the Mirakumo back and the second Prez. And then because we're still not locked, because of the way that we sequenced our Ryzeals, we're not locked out of rank 8s, so we can make a rank 8 here, and this time it's going to be Dragluxion. So what is this card? This card says if this card is special summoned from the extra deck, you can add a Galaxy or Tachyon card from your deck to the hand. So you might think, what the heck is that? What are we playing, some sort of crazy hybrid Galaxy Tachyon deck? No, of course not. It just so happens to be that 7th Tachyon is a Tachyon card. And this is, let's be honest, this is a Ryzeal card. So, that's nice. We now have an extra extender. Instead of a hand trap negate in the form of Photon Lord, we have an extra extender in the form of 7th Tachyon. The reason this is justified is because we have the cross early. We're already protected from Nibiru. In the previous line, remember we didn't have the Ryzeal cross yet. We just had, we searched for plugin instead of cross. So going for the monster negate was more conservative into Nibiru. But now because we don't have that, right? We don't have that plugin, so we might as well get the cross earlier, which means we no longer need to go for the rank 8 that protects from Nibiru. We can go for the one that extends. And it's also not weaker on the end board because of this second effect, which we're going to use right now. Detach 2 materials to special summon Hope Harbinger on top of it. Hope Harbinger is kind of similar to Photon Lord in that it's just sort of a negate on your end board. This one negates spells instead of monsters, which is generally quite a little bit better. Just in general, most powerful cards that you're going to want to trade 1-for-1 with are more likely to be a spell than a monster. It just gives you a little bit of protection against board breakers. So technically the end board I feel like it's a little bit stronger with Hope Harbinger. It also has a couple of other effects which don't really come up, but occasionally they will. But the spell negate generally is a little bit better than the monster negate. So whenever you don't need the hand trap protection for your combo, Hope Harbinger is kind of preferable to Photon Lord. So then we're going to special summon the sword, now that we don't need to worry about the Ryzeal lock anymore. That's going to search for Star. We're still going to special summon Star, even though we don't have any targets for it, just because it's a body. And we're going to overlay all 3 again into Prime Mathmech Laplacian. So realistically, you're probably not playing this card. But if you are playing one of these no plugin builds, then because you're not playing plugin, it's technically theoretically impossible to do a double hand loop, because you need to use plugin to get that second hand loop to revive the Ouroboros, which means if you are going to play a 3 material like hand loop card, it might as well be Laplacian, because while this card is a hard once per turn, it doesn't matter if we're only doing it once anyway. So you might as well go for the Laplacian over the Ouroboros, because this card has a much stronger effect, like going second. If you happen to make this in some sort of going second board break situation or a grind game situation, this can obviously do like all 3 effects in one. You know, send a hand from the send a card from the hand field, and a spell trap, right? So like this card does more going second, which is why if you are playing a build with no plugin, this is probably better than playing Ouroboros. But functionally it's the same thing. It's going to hand loop the opponent for 1. And you do have to detach. I did forget that real quick. But then you're going to use Ryzeal Cross, you're going to put back 2 cards, and you're going to draw 1. And then we're going to go for the 7th Tachyon. It's important to draw 1 first, just because that might change your target. You do have 2 targets for this Tachyon. You have Ice, and you have the second Ext. So theoretically you could get either of those. Ext is the better one. You are going to search for Ext right now. Remember, we have to reveal the Masquerade in the extra deck. We are going to search for Ext, but suppose that we drew the Ext with the cross, then we would get something like Ice instead. And then we're going to put back a card. The replay doesn't show putting back a card because you're going to have 4 other cards in the hand anyway. But you do need to put back a card. Realistically, this Habakiri is looking like a pretty good card to put back because it is completely useless. It's not even follow-up because its effect is once per duel to special summon from the deck. So like you probably just put this back on top of your deck. But anyway, we're going to special summon the Ext. We're going to send Aggregator. We're going to special summon the node. We're going to activate the node, send the Laplacian, target the sword, again protecting your target from bestials by targeting fire. And then that's going to make a big detonator. And this is a real big detonator because it's an extra material, because we made it with 3 materials. And we're also going to get to attach Aggregator, so we have that option as a negate as well. So then we're going to set the prez, and what is this end board? We have a cross negate, we have 4 material detonator, one of which is Aggregator for a monster negate or any card negate. Hope Harbinger, even without materials, is a spell negate. It doesn't need to detach materials, it's just a negate. And then we also have Prez, Revive, Murakumo for the board wipe and the -1 effect. So pretty good combo all around. We also drew 1 card, and of course we have 4 other cards in the hand, all of which could be hand traps. So pretty good combo again, even without plugin, even without the double hand loop. Not to mention we've hand looped, by the way, we've hand looped for 1. Let's not forget that. Even without the second hand loop, this is still extremely strong. So I decided to include both of these combos, by the way, just because I personally don't know which I prefer. I don't know if I prefer looping twice and playing plugin, or cutting the brick and looping just once. Not sure which I prefer. I'll have to test to figure out which I prefer. But anyway, let's look at the next combo. Okay, so next is the Ext 1-card combo. You can see that this ends on a slightly weaker end board. The thing that is missing here is the rank 8. So in the Ice 1-card combos, we get either Photon Lord or Hope Harbinger, depending on which combo you go for, but you get the rank 8. In the Ext 1-card combo, you don't get that. And it's easy to see why, because if we go right to the start of the combo here, where you have just Ext, you can see that you have to special summon it and search for sword. And if you special summon Ext using its summoning condition, then you're obviously locked out of the extra deck, except for rank 4s, so you can't make rank 8s. Because of that, you can't, make the rank 8, which means the end board is going to be slightly worse, because you had to lock yourself early, but it's still going to be a good combo. So note that we're going to send a duo drive here. This is depending on if you play 2 duo drives or not. If you don't have a second duo drive, you're not going to be able to send this because you're going to need to make a duo drive. But if you do have a second duo drive, then you're going to want to send it and basically play like standard Ryzeal. So we're going to special summon the sword. We're going to search for Ice. We haven't yet normal summoned, and we are going to normal summon the Ice. We're going to use its effect, and that's going to bring out Star from the deck. Star will then set the cross, and this is exactly how you play pure Ryzeal. With Ext, you pretty much send the second duo drive so that you are insulated from hand traps. Your 5th summon here is going to be an XC monster while Cross is on the board. So we're going to overlay into Duo Drive here. And we are going to put it in the extra monster zone for the same reason as before with the ice combos. If you put it in the main monster zone, you're going to run out of space. So make sure you put it in the extra monster zone. So now if the opponent has Nibiru, we're going to be able to negate with Cross. And if they also were saving Ash for the Duo Drive, then they're also going to not be able to Ash, because we're going to use the effect on Summon to attach the Duo Drive. This is just standard pure Ryzeal lines into hand traps. This beats Nibiru very cleanly. This beats saving Ash or Vela for Duo Drive. So now you're going to use the Duo Drive. You're going to detach. And I like to detach the Duo Drive so that we can recycle it with Cross later on. And we're going to search for Node as well as Plugin. Just like the Ice 1-card combo, Node and Plugin are two very unsearchable cards. Generally, Duo Drive is the only way to get to these. Plugin can't really be accessed by Star because you want to use it on this turn. That's the whole reason to play Plugin in this version of the deck with the Mitsurugi cards. It's so that you can do the double hand loop. And Node is only searchable by Duo Drive or with Ext, right? Ext is the only other way to search a Fire Thunder. So because we already used Ext to get going, this is the only chance we have to get to Node. So that's why we're obviously going to search for those two. But it's perfectly fine. That's all we need. We're going to overlay the 2 level 4s on the board for Feral Imps. That gets us to Habakiri. Now we do the Mitsurugi combo. And you're going to tribute again the Feral Imps because the level 4 body is more valuable than the rank 4 body. And this is exactly the same as every single time so far. We go for the Ritual from Hand effect first, send the pieces from the deck to the graveyard. That gets you back the Ritual using Kusanagi, and gets you the extra body using the Serpent. And then we go for the Ritual Summon from deck. Again, really sorry for these visual glitches, I don't know why this keeps happening. You're going to summon out Murakumo. That's going to trigger the Habakiri, it will revive itself, and you get to search for prayers. This is exactly the same as every other Mitsurugi line. This is pretty much the standard Mitsurugi line. Even in builds that are not Ryzeal, you're probably going to play it like this anyway. So you're going to get that second prayers, and now you can overlay all 3 of your monsters for the Ouroboros. Ouroboros loops 1 card. Then you can summon the Node, sorry. Important that you send away the Ouroboros so that you can put it into the graveyard, target the sword, play around Bestials, and then go Detonator. And Detonator's going to attach something random here. I like to attach the Feral Imps in this case, but it could be anything, could be the Nightsword Serpent, because that technically has like a detach effect. You can go Ryzeal Plugin. It doesn't really matter if you go Plugin for the second hand loop first, or Detonator, it really doesn't really matter at all. But because you already have your negate set up for a hand trap with Duo Drive, the material on Duo Drive. But I guess just to be double safe, making Detonator first is maybe slightly better. It doesn't really matter. But then you have the second hand loop, and then you use your Cross to draw 2. And here I didn't put back the Duo Drive, but you could put back the Duo Drive if you wanted to. Doesn't really matter. We get one free draw there, and then we set the prayers and pass. So the end board is the same as the Ice 1-card combo with Plugin. We have a double hand loop using Ouroboros. We have a big Detonator. We have prayers, and this time Murakumo's on the board, but technically it doesn't really matter. It just means that you can get this effect to force them to discard a card before you can get this effect. So that option is available to you while Murakumo's on the board. Whereas when it was in the graveyard, you would obviously have to revive it first, use the Raigeki effect, and then you would get this. The difference there being that this is typically an effect, the Raigeki effect. This is typically something that you would want to wait for the appropriate time. You wouldn't want to shotgun this immediately. This is, it's not frame 1 you're going to use this. You're probably going to hold this for a decent amount of time against a lot of decks. And that means that this effect is not going to come up for a while as well. So technically having it on the board makes the Murakumo a little stronger. But this is not the strongest effect anyway. The majority of your end board comes from the double hand loop and the detonator. The Mitsurugi cards are just sort of a bonus at this point. But just to make sure it's extremely clear how this works, the way Prez works is that we're going to tribute the Murakumo whenever we want to activate the Prez. So once we've used this effect to make them discard, we can then tribute the Murakumo with the Prez. Optionally, we can tribute it. We get to search, we get to revive, and then when tributed, the Murakumo will special summon itself, getting the effect to Raigeki the opponent. So it is available, both effects are available very, very easily. And because this tributes for cost, as part of the condition for activating the card, and Murakumo revives itself with its own effect, it means that if this card gets hit with Bell or Ash, or Impulse, it still doesn't put you off the Murakumo. You can still tribute it. You can still summon it back after tributing it. So this is a pretty good end board. It's the same thing, just minus the rank 8 when compared to, the Ice combo. Okay, so next is the Sword 1-card combo. This is one of the weaker 1-card combos, just like in pure Ryzeal or any build of Ryzeal. Sword on its own is the worst starter, but it does still play. So this is what you can do with Sword. We're going to normal summon, we're going to get X'd, then we're going to special summon X'd, and we're going to send the Duo Drive. Sending the Duo Drive allows you to play around Nibiru and hand traps, like I said, but by summoning the X'd, of course you are locked out of rank 8s again, so we're not going to have access to Hope Harbinger or anything like that. We're going to get Node here. Now this is really important. The fact that we got to search for Node here early means that we can go into King of the Feral Imps, search for Habakiri, and we can just start going on the Mitsurugi combo, because at any point if we get Nibiru'd, we can't get Nibiru'd yet, we're only on 3 summons, but the Mitsurugi cards are going to play into Nibiru, and then if we get hit with Nibiru no matter what, we do have the Node Ryzeal available to at least make a detonator no matter what. Maybe a Duo Drive depending on when they use Nibiru. But what's going to happen is we're going to use Habakiri, we're going to summon out Saji, tribute the Feral Imps, leave the level 4 on the board. That triggers and searches for Ritual. And then we go for the same line as always, summon the Habakiri, sending from deck first. Then add it back to the hand, get your free body, and then summon from the deck. Although, before we do that, I guess this combo is going to go into Duo Drive. It's slightly better to do this first, because this is a pretty reasonable time to use Nibiru if you're the opponent. If you are holding it, this is a reasonable time to want to use it. And I think it is slightly stronger to get hit with Nibiru now, when the Habakiri will just float, and then the Ritual can be used afterwards. The main thing you're going to be missing out on is the Habakiri body on the board, which, because we're already locked by X'd out of rank 8s, this Habakiri body on the board achieves nothing. So if the opponent uses Nibiru now, all they're essentially doing is negating the Duo Drive. So we're going to attach the extra material. The extra material here is not the most important because there's no cross yet, so if opponent Nibiru's, they're still going to negate Duo Drive, but it does mean, by sending the extra material, it does mean that by resolving this Duo Drive, you are threatening to immediately have a negate for Nibiru with cross, so that just makes it all the more tempting to get Nibiru'd here, and I think you want to be Nibiru'd here if your opponent has it, because it's just the most manageable situation, right? Node means that you're always going to have at least Detonator, Ritual, and Habakiri floating means you're going to get access to Mitsurugi disruptions, so I would like to be Nibiru'd here, but if you don't, then we're going to get Cross, as well as Sword Ryzeal. You might think it's weird to get Sword, because we've already used Sword, but we have only used the normal summon effect, right? We've searched, but we only normal summoned it, so we can still special summon the Sword as a free body. So you're going to activate the Cross, now you're Nibiru proof, And then we're going to use the ritual to play Mitsurugi, summon out Murakumo from the deck, revive the Habakiri. Same line as before, so no reason to really mention it. We're going to summon the sword now, but it doesn't really matter what order you do this in because you have your Nibiru installation. Doing this now is just a form of... It doesn't really matter, right? Because you can hold the sword, you can wait, it doesn't really matter. But you're going to do all of these actions. You're going to bring back that Murakumo, and that's going to search for the second Prez. So now you have your Mitsurugi set up, you have your two bodies. That's going to overlay into Emerald. So this is one difference between the sword combo and the other combos we've seen so far. Going Emerald here because we don't have a third body to make Ouroboros. We could summon the node, but if we summoned the node and then used it as material for Ouroboros, we wouldn't have material for Detonator, and we wouldn't have material for... or we wouldn't have the means to loop twice because we don't have access to plugin, right? We didn't search for plugin. So instead we're going to go for Emerald because this is only a 2 material play. So we're going to put back some of our cards here. Feral Imps, Kusanagi, and the Sagi we put back because those are the one-offs. And then we draw a card, so we get 1 free draw. Now we're going to summon the node. And then the node is going to allow us to send the Emerald, target the sword, and that gives us our Detonator. We have to end on Detonator. There's kind of no reason not to ever end on Detonator, because it is the strongest part of Ryzeal, of course. We're going to attach the Emerald because there's nothing super important to attach. Now we can use Cross to draw another card. So this end board has a Cross Negate, 3 material Detonator, Murakumo on the board, Prez set to revive it, and 2 draws. And of course we're going to have 4 other cards in the hand. So not as strong as the other combos because we didn't hand loop anything, and we also didn't get to summon a rank 8. But it's still a 1-card combo with sword, so it's still acceptable, in my opinion. So the next combo here is the Bonfire 1-card combo. There's no replay here because it's just the same as Ice. In pure Ryzeal, before Mitsurugi, Bonfire usually searched for X, because X was kinda the stronger starter than Ice. It played into less stuff, particularly Fua. But I think in the Mitsurugi build, Ice is stronger. If we look at the Ice combos, we can see that this gets due to the Harbinger or the Photon Lord. The combos are just slightly better with Ice. So I like getting Ice with Bonfire in this build over X'd. And then next we have the 7th Ascension / 7th Tachyon combo. So if you look at this combo, 3 material Detonator, Cross, Photon Lord, Prez, Murakumo, hand loop 2, draw 1. It's exactly the same as the Ice 1-card combo. And that makes a lot of sense because all we're going to do with the 7th Tachyon is search for Ice. So we have the Full Loss here because we need a card to put back. So it is technically like a 1.5 card combo, but from here on out it's just the same as if we drew Ice. It goes into Feral Imps first, we have the sword to extend through any hand traps. The replay is looking a little weird with the fast forward because of the visual glitches, but you've seen this combo before, that's why I'm not really going through it. It's the same as the Ice 1-card combo. We search for node, and here we get plugin because it's going to be the hand loop 2 combo. We go for the Mitsurugi line, and because we used Ice, we are not locked out of the extra deck into only rank 4s. So what we can do now is overlay for Photon Lord. Remember that 7th Tachyon does have a lock. It locks you into Xyz, but it doesn't specify rank 4 only, so it's not as severe as like the Ryzeal locks, which lock you into rank 4s. So if you start with 7th Tachyon, you can still, of course, make a rank 8, and that's what we're doing here. The Photon Lord here is mainly just to allow us to have more freedom with what we do. So now we have a negate for Nibiru without having to leave this duo drive on the board with the 1 material. And without having to get to cross, right? So now if you think about it, if this was, let's say, Hope Harbinger instead, after summoning this sword, we are still vulnerable to Nibiru. So here we're going to go for the star, and we're going to try to get the cross. At this point, before we flip up the cross, right, because we have to set it face down first, before we can do any of this, opponent could Nibiru us, and if we had Hope Harbinger, we would not be able to negate, right? Whereas by going Hope Harbinger before summoning the Ryzeal, the Sword Ryzeal, we are insulating from Nibiru slightly earlier. That way we're not forced to lose one more extender into Nibiru, because the opponent doesn't have that option. So here we're going to go Ouroboros, loop 1, special summon node. This is sort of the pattern that you're looking out for. You really want to find 3 bodies on the board while node is in the hand and plugin is in the hand. That is sort of the pattern to look for getting your double hand loop, because you need 3 materials for Ouroboros, then you need the node Ryzeal effect to send it away to the graveyard so that you can revive it with plugin. And obviously node also in the process revives a second level 4, so that's how you get detonator for free as well. So this is the pattern to look out for. It's pretty straightforward in the 1-card combos, but if you're doing like a more realistic combo, which is going to be like more than 1 card in your hand that's engine, perhaps some hand traps were played, and you're sort of improvising, then this is sort of the pattern to look out for, right? 3 level 4s on the board, plugin plus node in the hand. If you got that, you can do double hand loop. So yeah, from here we go attach ice from the deck, hand loop 2, and then make the detonator. And of course we draw our free card, and we set and pass. Exactly the same as the ice 1-card combo, we just went -1 technically because we used Tachyon, so we put back a card from our hand. Next we have a Habakiri 1-card combo. So this one, we've got 2 Habakiri 1-card combos. We've got the Respect Nib version, and then we've got the Disrespect Nib version. So starting with the Respect Nibiru version, we're going to start with just Habakiri, of course. And this card is, of course, a 1-card combo. No doubt you figured that out in the last couple days of playing Master Duel. It's one of the best 1-card combos ever made, in terms of what it facilitates. And in this deck, Mitsurugi Ryzeal, this is what it's going to do. We're going to summon Sagi, tribute Sagi. Sagi will then tribute, trigger. Remember that this card can be summoned or tributed, and it will get its effect. Doesn't have to stay on the board, we can summon it, tribute it, it will still trigger. That's just for the Mitsurugi ritual. And we basically go for the same line that we have in every single Mitsurugi part of the combo so far. We send the Serpent, we send the Kusanagi, get the free body, and we get the ritual. Now we have to use the ritual immediately because we don't have that extra level 4 body on the board, because the Sagi had to be tributed. Did not get to stay on the board because we didn't have anything else to tribute. So we do have to go for the full line here, where we activate ritual, summon out the Murakumo, search for the Prez, and then activate the Prez to tribute the Murakumo and get back the second level 4. We do have to do all of this, otherwise we don't have access to 2 level 4s, right? Which is how we're going to access the rest of our engine. Once you get to this point in the combo, you are vulnerable to Nibiru. You've revived Habakiri, you've revived Murakumo, you've summoned more than 5 times. If you get hit with Nibiru, you don't have any extension. This Habakiri in the hand isn't going to do anything. None of these cards are going to revive themselves. So it is pretty it's pretty rough. You're basically playing with Prez Pass. That Prez, by the way, came from Murakumo. I forgot to show it. Of course, when you revive, you get to add a Mitsurugi card. So it would be Prez Pass if we got Nibiru here, which is not very good, but it's also, it's not nothing, but it isn't very good. So this does play into Nibiru here. But let's say we don't get Nibiru, we can overlay into Photon Lord. And now, if the opponent had Nibiru anyway, and they were holding it, they will now realize the mistake. We're also going to put this in the extra monster zone so that we can keep our zones clear. So now that we have the Photon Lord, this is, even though in theory your opponent can Nibiru you beforehand, so if you really want to be heads up about it, if you want to be really smart, you could assume that a good player who understands what's going on is going to Nibiru you there anyway. It really depends on how popular Photon Lord is as a card in the format, like how likely it is that you're going to summon this. But there's a chance the opponent would hold Nibiru, depending on if this card is not very popular. But if you suspect they don't have Nibiru, otherwise they would have used it, then you could still just go for Hope Harbinger and it would be exactly the same line. You just have a different negate rather than Photon Lord. But in my opinion, I like going for the Photon Lord just in case there is any late hand traps, just in case they are holding Nibiru, just in case they decide to not hand trap Mitsurugi with like Ash or something at all. Maybe they hold that for Ryzeal, who knows? Maybe a Bestial. A Bestial would not necessarily have been used yet, although it probably would have been used on Murakumo now that I think about it. But just theoretically, I like having the Photon Lord as an extra line of defense. So we're going to go into Banshee here. We're going to go Banshee instead of Duo Drive, because the way it's going to work out is that Banshee just gets us more bodies. So we're going to search for Ice. Remember, we have not normal summoned. So we're going to normal summon the Ice. That's going to summon Sword. We have to go Sword here and not X'd, because remember that X'd Ryzeal doesn't let you search unless you control only level 4s, or rank 4s. So the fact that we have the Photon Lord on the board means that X'd is basically useless. We could still summon it from the hand if we had it, but we can't search with its effect. So we're going to use Sword Ryzeal. We're going to get Star here, because we have not yet got access to Ryzeal Cross. Next, we're going to summon the star, and most importantly, we're going to detach Murakumo from Photon Lord. Whenever you summon Photon Lord, it's going to be important to detach Murakumo, because you want this in the graveyard for Prez. And then we're going to set the cross. Then we're going to overlay 2 monsters into Duo Drive. We have not yet been through Duo Drive. We can detach 2 materials. One of them is going to go from the Banshee, because leaving material on Duo Drive is just even more insulation from hand traps. It's going to be a material that we get to save for a negate with cross for our end board, instead of having to waste a material on the detonator. So it's always good to have a material on the Duo Drive. And that's going to get us the node plus the X'd. So why are we getting X'd here? Why are we not getting plugin? Well, you'll notice from what I mentioned in the previous combo that in order to go for a double hand loop, you need to have 3 bodies on the board plus plugin plus node. And we had to spend 1 search here on the node. If we spent the other search, instead of X'd, we got plugin. We would not have that set up, right? We only have 1 free level 4 here. So that's why we have to go for something else. So what we're going to do is summon the X'd, and we're going to send Aggregator to the graveyard. X'd, again, can't activate, but just getting the body on the board and the Aggregator in the graveyard is the best thing to do. So we're going to overlay into Emerald. Emerald is going to detach, and we're going to recycle the Mitsurugi cards so that they can be used again, theoretically. And we're going to draw 1. Next, we can summon the node. Then we get to use node. We're going to send the Banshee because the Emerald theoretically has material. Actually, yeah, this is not correct. I'm going to correct it in a minute. We overlay into Detonator here, and then Detonator attaches the Aggregator. Exactly what you would expect. The only problem is with this way of doing things, we don't have a draw with cross, because we don't have 2 Ryzeals in the graveyard. So instead, what we're going to do is send the Emerald instead of the Banshee, so that we can get that second material into the graveyard and draw 1. So it was just a slight mistake in the replay, but hopefully it's easy to understand why we need that, why we need to send the Emerald. And that's something that in practice you could maybe figure out if you just think your line through. So here what we have is 2 draws, set Prez, Murakumo in graveyard, big Detonator with Aggregator attached, so it's slightly stronger than some other detonators. We have material and Duo Drive for cross, and we have Photon Lord negate. So pretty decent end board, just doesn't have the hand loop too. Okay, so next is the Habakiri 1-card combo again, but this time we are not going to respect Nibiru. So let me skip through the start of the combo because it's going to be exactly the same. We have just the Habakiri that gets us the Sagi. Okay, the lag is making this pretty hard to see, so I'll go a little slow. We summon the Habakiri with the ritual, sending the 2 material, summon out the snake, add back the ritual, and then we summon out the Murakumo, we get the Prez, and then from here, after we activate the Prez, search for a land Habakiri, and then use the tribute effect of Mitsurugi, of Murakumo, sorry, we get to this position. In this position, in the previous combo, I mentioned how the opponent could just Nibiru you now anyway, and you would be in trouble. You would have Prez, revive Murakumo, and that would be it on their turn. If your opponent doesn't Nibiru you though, one thing that you could maybe infer is that they don't have it, because yes, you could make Photon Lord, but even the other rank 8, the Drag Luxion, is pretty good into Nibiru too, because Drag Luxion is going to be a on-summon trigger to search for 7 Tachyon, and at that point you can go 2 level 4s into Ryzeal combo, into cross, force the opponent to do something with the Nibiru, and then you already have the extender with the 7 Tachyon, so you could maybe get like a sword or something, or an X at least. It's possible that that's how it could play out. So it's tempting that your opponent could just Nibiru here. Generally, they could just Nibiru, so if you're feeling risky, if you feel like they don't have it, you can instead go for this line, which doesn't protect you from Nibiru really at all, so you can go for the Drag Luxion. You're still fine if you get Nibiru now, but it's not as good as just negating it with Photon Lord. So that's why this combo is a little bit risky into Nibiru, but let's assume we don't have it. Maybe we just have like a cross out in the hand for Nibiru as well. So we're going to Duel Drive, we're going to detach from the Hope Harbinger. This card doesn't need any material to use this negate, so we can make use of this material. We're going to add node, and we're going to add plugin. Remember, node and plugin, generally they're the greedy adds with Duel Drive, because you can't really get them any other way. So here I'm going to go 7 Tachyon. I'm going to reveal the Masquerade in my extra deck. I'm going to search for ice. We haven't yet normal summoned, so we can just go for the ice. And this is going to look pretty much the same as before. But we get star, we can summon the star by detaching from the duo drive, again completely disrespecting Nibiru here. Even when we activate this cross, there's no material to detach from duo drive, so if they have Nibiru, it does really suck here. But at least we have a node, I suppose. So it is still, if we get to this point, I suppose it's fine into Nibiru, but they probably would have used it earlier. So we're going to overlay all three. We're not going to go for Detonator, we're going to go for Ouroboros. We're going to loop the card from the hand, summon the node, send away the Ouroboros, revive the sword, play around the base duel. And then we get to make the Detonator. We're going to attach anything random from the graveyard, and then we use the plugin for the second hand loop. So this is functionally the same endboard as an Ice 1-card combo. You're going to loop 2, you're going to have Detonator, you're going to have Harbinger, and you're going to have Prez for Mitsurugi disruptions. And you're also going to get a draw 1 with Cross, of course. The only difference is that if you're going to do this with just Habakiri, this does play harder into Nibiru, as opposed to the Ice 1-card combo, which actually beats Nibiru relatively well, and there's some details about that up here on the combo. So yeah, let's move on to the next combo, which is the Prez 1-card combo. So Prez is also a starter for Mitsurugi. That's something important to know. And even though it's sort of like an engine requirement where you kind of don't want to start with it, in theory, you'd rather start with the Habakiri, it is actually relatively strong by itself. So here's what you can do with Prez. You're going to activate the Prez, and realistically you should do this in the draw phase. If you don't have any other play, you should start with this in the draw phase, just the same way you do with like a Pearly spell or Branded Opening, Branded in High Spirits, just so that you're playing around draw better. And you're going to search for Habakiri. Habakiri effect is going to summon Sagi from the deck, just like always. And you can imagine that most of this combo actually just works out exactly the same, up until the point where we need to activate Prez in the regular line. We're not going to be able to do that because it's once per turn. But until then, everything is the same. We summon out the Sword Serpent, we get back the Ritual, we use the Summon from Deck effect into the Murakumo. Then we trigger, summon back the Habakiri, and then we search for the Prez. Now normally we would like to activate this Prez and get to the second level 4, but we can't do that because Prez here is of course just a once per turn effect. You can't use both of them. So this Prez in our hand is limited to being just set as a back row. That's what this Prez is going to do. So from this position, the only way to really extend is to overlay the 2 level 8s. Even though we haven't yet tributed Murakumo, we have to give up on that effect. There's no way to get value out of that. So we just have to go for Dragluxion, which on summon searches for 7 Tachyon. So now we can do a Ryzeal combo. We are playing into Nibiru though, which is rough because we weren't able to make the Photon Lord. We had to make Dragluxion in order to get to Ryzeal. So we are playing into Nibiru, just like the previous combo, but at least it combos. So from here we're going to go into Ice, and this is going to look very, very similar to what we just saw. Ice into Sword into Star, Special Summon Star, take away that useless material from Harbinger, and then we're going to overlay into Duo Drive, detach to search for the node, as well as the X. So this is slightly different because remember the pattern that you're looking out for. 3 bodies on the board plus node plus plugin is double hand loop. If you don't have the 3 bodies on the board, then you can't do the double hand loop. So instead, we're not going to go for the plugin because even though plugin's a decent card, when you have the Mitsurugi setup as well, Ryzeal doesn't really need plugin to do what it normally does, which is like reliability and extra material on Detonator. You don't need it to do that. You only really care about the card as a enabler for the double hand loop. So that's why if you don't have access to the double hand loop because you don't have enough bodies, for example, or you don't have node, I don't recommend even bothering to search for it. So we're just going to go for the X tier, which is an additional body. So what we're going to do is special summon the X, and we're going to send Aggregator so that our Detonator is a little bit stronger. Going to go overlay all 3 into Ouroboros. Okay, so we are going for the hand loop still in this combo, but it's not going to be the double hand loop because we don't have plugin. So here we're going to go Ouroboros to loop 1, special summon the sword, or special summon the node, sorry. Send away the Duo Drive. You probably could send the Ouroboros instead, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter that much. Special summon the sword, and we make the detonator. And then here we're going to attach the aggregator, because we do actually have a meaningful monster to attach here. And then we put back put back 2, sorry, and then draw 1. So what we have here on this end board is a big detonator, a spell negate, 1 hand loop, which we've already done, and then the Mitsurugi disruption. Alternatively, if you didn't want to bother hand looping 1 because you didn't think it's very good, you could just overlay these into a Daigosto Emerald instead and draw 1. Or you could go Dugares if you're playing it and draw 2, discard 1. You could go Gallant Granite and search for Nibiru. All of those are just typical options that you could do. If you don't really have access to the double hand loop, then there's a really good argument for just going for something else. But this is just one of the options, right? The single hand loop is an option. And then the last combo on this sheet is a 2-card combo, Ice plus Habakiri. So this is just showing you how to play 2-card combinations. So typically, I think at the highest level of gameplay, the way you should approach multiple starter hands is not in terms of building the better end board, but in terms of playing the best through hand traps. Most decks these days, at least currently, are not really losing to low impact hand traps just because of how powerful extenders are. So Ash, Imperm, Veiler, they're not really beating you. So it's kind of trivial to play through them, but you should still optimize your plan for those cards. So we're going to start with Ice and Habakiri. The combo starts with Ice Ryzeal every time. The reason to start with Ice instead of Habakiri is because, let's say the opponent has Ash as their hand trap. Ashing Habakiri immediately cuts you off of all of the Mitsurugi side of the deck. You can still play full Ryzeal, but it would just be pure Ryzeal at that point. Whereas if your opponent ashes the Ice Ryzeal instead, you are not cut off from Mitsurugi, because you can resolve Habakiri, of course, but you're also not cut off from Ryzeal, because Ryzeal can continue to play from a generic level 4, right? Any generic level 4, in addition to this Ice, is going to get you to Duo Drive, for example. So Ryzeal is not going to be cut off by the Ash, whereas if you started Habakiri and they ashed you, you would be cut off from one side of the deck, the Mitsurugi side. So definitely start with Ice Ryzeal. Special summon X from the deck, and we're gonna again make use of the fact that we want to search with X before playing Mitsurugi, so that we can actually, you know, not play into this condition and actually get the search. And then we're gonna hold the Sword Ryzeal in the hand, because this allows us to play through disruptions. Here, normally in the Ice 1-card combo, you would go King of the Feral Imps, but we're going to make Banshee here instead, and I'm going to put it in the extra monster zone for space reasons, as always. The reason to go Banshee here is because while it would be incredibly funny, and it would be a very, very powerful play to just make King of the Feral Imps anyway, get Impermed or get Ashed, and then have Habakiri in hand anyway, as funny as that would be, and as much of a blowout as that would be, if your opponent doesn't Ash or Imperm that King of the Feral Imps, it's a complete waste, right? Because you already have the Habakiri. So just to play around that as well, that possibility, we're going for Banshee. Banshee is a reasonable Imperm. This is something that is reasonable to Ash or Imperm, and the opponent is... well, in this case, they're not going to do anything, but let's say that they did Imperm us, we would obviously have Habakiri after that, and if they didn't, we can still get value out of the search by searching for Star, which is a free body. So afterwards, we're going to go Habakiri. The reason we're going Habakiri now is because this is exactly the same place as where we would normally Habakiri. This is just going to be King of the Feral Imps instead, in the Ice 1-card combo. And we have a pretty nice plan through Nibiru here. Let's say we start playing for... yeah, okay, we're not going to tribute the Sage here. We're going to tribute the Banshee. Remember, the level 4 body is worth more. And that's going to search us for Mitsurugi. Let's say we play Mitsurugi for a bit and then we get Nibiru. Having access to Sword and then Star on top of it is quite a lot of extension through Nibiru, so we're feeling pretty safe right now. So, standard line, send the cards from the deck, send the bricks, trigger the bricks, summon out the body, add back the ritual, and then I'm just going to go for the ritual now. There's no reason to overlay because I guess you could go for Duo Drive as always, it doesn't really matter too much. I feel like most players would not Nibiru you until you establish this sort of position where you're threatening potentially like a Photon Lord or something. It really depends on what standard combos end up being. This is just an example of how to play Mitsurugi Ryzeal, but the actual meta isn't necessarily Mitsurugi Ryzeal, and it's not necessarily built like this either. So you're gonna have to sort of read the room a little bit on when you expect Nibiru and when you don't. But let's say we get to this position, and then we get Nibiru'd, we have a lot of extension. The sword on top of the star, and of course the prayers is secured as well as a disruption no matter what. We have access to the Murakumo on their turn, plus the sword and the star, it's pretty damn good. So here we're going to overlay into the Duo Drive. Duo Drive is going to be able to attach from the graveyard because we started with Ryzeal cards. Now we get to detach, and this really forces the Nibiru because we could just search for cross, and if we just activated the cross, they would have to chain Nibiru to it, right? Because we have this extra material. So if they had Nibiru, they would no doubt drop it to negate Duo Drive. So now we're going to search for node, and of course plugin. We're going to have easily enough bodies to play out this this full combo here. We're going to overlay into Drag Luxion here. Argument here is, like I said, you would have been Nibiru'd by now, so you don't need to go Photon Lord. It's better to go Drag Luxion here, just because in a vacuum, the spell negate from Hope Harbinger, which we're going to go for now, is a slightly stronger end board piece than a monster negate because board breakers and power spells are obviously like spells, whereas monster negates are well, monster effects are not as likely to be board breaking, right? Things like Droplet could be negated by this, perhaps. Things like Raigeki, Grass, Thrust, Talents. Those are the cards that are going to break a board if you're going to get your board broken. Brilliant Fusion, potentially, Branded Fusion. And this card can stop all of those, whereas, you know, Photon Lord cannot. So from here, we're going to summon the star. We're going to detach from the Hope Harbinger. Activate the cross. Now we're super safe from Nibiru. Summon sword. Get X. We have not yet summoned X, so we have another body available. Next, we're going to overlay all three. We have I have three bodies on the board, plus node, plus plugin, which means we have access to a double hand loop. So we're going to loop one. We're going to special summon the X here. Now X sends aggregator so that we have access to a stronger detonator. Now we're going to summon the node. We're going to send away the Ouroboros, target the sword, overlay into detonator, attach the aggregator. And now because we have one more extender, this is why we summoned the X. We definitely want to summon the X before the detonator so that we can attach the aggregator. But it's not a wasted body because we can actually get another body here by searching for another ice. And we can special summon ice. We haven't used its special summon effect yet, so we can special summon it by sending something to the graveyard. In this case, we sent nothing, but you're gonna have other cards in the hand to send, right? So you can send one of those, and then we get to go for a free rank 4, which in this case is going to be Emerald, but it could be Gallant Granite, it could be Dugares, all reasonable, whatever you're playing in the extra deck. So in this case, we're going to get a draw and recycle our Mitsu engine. And then we also get one more bonus draw with Cross, as well as the second hand loop, of course. So we looped twice, we attached a sword from the deck there, with plugin it wasn't very clear, didn't show it very well, but that's what we did. And then we obviously use cross to draw one more card. So this is it, this is the end board. We have a spell negate, a monster negate with cross, 3 material detonator including plugin, including aggregator, sorry. They're down 2 cards, so they're starting with 4 cards. And we have Prez, reviving Murakumo for a Raigeki, and another discard effect, which they're less likely to be able to pay for when you've been hand looping them. So this is a super strong end board. Definitely game winning with something like this. And it doesn't matter what this rank 4 is, whether it's a draw 1, try and find another hand trap, or a draw 2, or a Gallant Granite, search for a hand trap, whatever it is, it's all kind of the same thing really. Just trying to search for a non-engine card. You can make nothing and you could still probably win, so very strong end board. And that's it for the spreadsheet. I'm not going to go over the Eclipse Twins lines, which are actually even stronger, because Eclipse Twins is basically plugin, but without needing to search for it. It just comes from the extra deck for free. So it's basically going to be, once we get Eclipse Twins, as long as Ryzeal still exists in the same capacity and Mitsurugi still exists in the same capacity, then what's going to happen is it's going to be the same combos, but we're going to hand loop every single time, because we don't need to commit a plugin search. We can always just search another extender if we need it, which means we can hand loop every single hand, basically. That's what Eclipse Twins is going to do. For now though, my overall judgment, I think, is that the hand loop version of the deck might be a little gimmicky. I think it might actually be not super relevant to play the full combo hand loop, and it might just be better to play a more consistent deck. We might not even have to play cards like Node or Star or anything like that. You could just cut all the bricks and just play Mitsu and the good Ryzeal starters. But yeah, that's an example of like a full power Ryzeal Mitsu combos. So that'll do it for the video, because all we did is go through some combos in this video. So yeah, thanks for watching.